what's up? This is Patrick. Welcome to the Double ETF podcast, Everything Except the Football, episode 15. I hope you guys are doing great. Today, I have Murray Valeriano as a guest, stand-up comedian, writer. It was a good time, a fast-paced conversation, lots of laughs. You will notice the sound level is a bit weird at the very beginning, but it only lasts for a few seconds, and after that, it's fine. That shouldn't be a problem at all. So if you want to reach us, you can do so on Twitter at EETFpod, or you can drop us an email at eetfpodcast@gmail.com. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Murray Valeriano, and we will talk again soon. Thanks. With me today, I have the pleasure of having as a guest Murray Valeriano. Hi, sir.
That's beautiful.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Nice. Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to have you with us today. Well, okay, I bumped the mic 50 seconds in, so that's awesome.
I thought this was going to be a professional podcast, Patrick.
Yeah, you're going to be disappointed. Prepare yourself for that. So yeah, we know each other from the Name That Tune weekly quiz. And I knew about you from the Road Stories podcast and Never Not Funny and
great.
all that. But if you don't mind, feel free to tell us a little bit more about yourself.
My name is Murray Valeriano. I am a comedian. I am a writer. I am a surfer. I am a father of one. I am a husband of one. And I've never had any cavities.
I see that last part is intriguing. Apparently, people who don't produce, quote unquote, as much saliva are more likely to have cavities, apparently.
Oh, also people who don't go to the dentist don't get told they have cavities. So,
okay, so which category are you in?
No, I'm in the category of no cavities being told by a dentist. I don't know how much saliva I produce. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
But okay, so we're getting sidetracked right away. No, that's perfect.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I'm sorry.
No, that's not a problem at all. On the contrary, but when you were a kid, did you eat much candy or?
Yeah, I would imagine I did. My parents really didn't have much of we weren't much of a healthy house. So I ate my fair share of candy. I remember walking to school when I was a kid and stopping by the stationery store and getting a Yoo-Hoo and a Snickers for breakfast every morning. So yeah, I think I had my fair share of candy.
Yeah, that's quite a healthy breakfast.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so now you live in LA?
Yes, sir.
You've been there for how long?
Oh, my whole adult life.
So
yeah.
May I be ultra rude and ask you how old you are?
I'm 50.
So that means you're not from California originally?
No, I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee, but I moved around a lot as a child, and I primarily grew up in New Jersey.
Okay. Where else have you lived?
Memphis, Tennessee, Argus, Indiana. I'm sure you've heard of that bustling metropolis. That place had one stoplight, and the highway was a dirt road. I lived in Florida but I was too young to remember.
Okay.
I think Sarasota, which I think is where our friend Andy Solomon is from. Oh no, Jacksonville. I'm sorry. That's where I lived. Again, I was an infant, so I don't remember that. And New Jersey and New York and California. So
how old were you when you moved to New Jersey?
10-ish around there somewhere.
Okay. I didn't know about Indiana, to be honest.
It was such a small part of my life. It was, between 5 and 10. So not a lot really, really happened in that time. So,
and do you know why you moved around that much?
My dad was a preacher. Mm-hmm. And so I think he left Memphis. I think he got started preaching in Memphis, but he left Memphis to go to Indiana to go to seminary. And then he got a church there. And then he got a church in Jersey. I don't know where Florida fits in. He might have still been in the Navy. As a matter of fact, I might not have even been born when we lived in Florida. So scratch that off the record. Now that I think about it. So we moved around a lot because he would get different churches to pastor. And then he got one in New Jersey and he just rode that one to retirement.
He was in the Navy as well before.
Yeah, he was on one of the aircraft carriers that blocked the Soviet missiles from going into Cuba during the Cuban conflict under JFK.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good.
I think it's. My dad will be like, big deal, but I think it's really cool.
Do you know what he did specifically on that ship?
He was an airplane mechanic.
Oh, okay. So that was in 63.
63, yeah.
Did he go to Vietnam?
No, he was out right before Vietnam.
Oh, okay.
He got out right before it got heated up on our end. So I'm pretty sure we were in before we were technically in. But,
yeah,
but yeah, he got out just before Vietnam.
Did he? I mean, I'm asking so many questions.
That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. Like I said, I'm an open book, and I will be an open book about my dad, whether he likes it or not.
Okay. Do you know if he got out on purpose before things got heated, or his time was up, or?
I think he just ran his course, and he had met my mom while he was in the Navy. So they met at a USO dance, which is so, I don't know, movie romantic kind of, they met at a USO dance, and he fell in love with her, and they got married like something ridiculous, like 3 months later.
Okay.
And they're still together. So.
And did he? Okay, so I guess he became a preacher after the Navy, but that's an odd career change. Right?
Buckle up, Patrick. Buckle up.
Okay.
We got a whole bunch of non-linear things. Yeah, he found God after the Navy, I think. So, I mean, he tells me stories about getting drunk in the Navy and tearing up a bar in Okinawa, and which is my favorite story. He hates it, but I love it. And then he got out of the Navy, and him and my mom found God, and then he started pursuing the preacher lifestyle, I guess.
Which what's the word I'm looking for? Which
denomination?
Yes, denomination. Yes, thank you.
He started out Southern Baptist.
Okay.
So real hardcore. And then he went to a non-denominational church for the most part, kind of a Bible-based church.
Okay, so I'll be honest.
It's a fancy word for born-again Christianity.
Okay. I didn't know those existed, like non-denomination.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't work that way at all here. So I am absolutely clueless when it comes to religion in the U.S., to be honest.
Most people are clueless when it comes to religion in the U.S., even though they consider themselves religious.
That's quite possible. Okay, so let's go to the now.
Okay.
You are a comedian, stand-up comic, writer as well.
Yes, sir.
Let's go to the unavoidable topic, COVID. And this is an obvious question, but how were you able to adapt with work after COVID?
I adapted by not doing it, by not working. My primary job, although I am a writer also, is stand-up live performances. And when they mentioned COVID, I read about, COVID, that's interesting. And then the phone started ringing. We're canceling this date. We're canceling that date. They canceled this date. So my calendar was wiped clean within 3 days.
Wow. And your wife works in the movies as well. She's a costume designer.
Yes.
I guess that affected her as well, big time.
Yeah, they shut down. She only had 2 weeks left on a movie, and they shut down. But then they were able to pick up those 2 weeks in the summer.
Okay.
And now she started back to work on a new film this week. So she's going back to normal.
Okay.
So as normal as we can get, I guess.
Can you give me an impression of what LA looks like when the entire entertainment industry is shut down?
Empty, and it's glorious. I'm telling you, I say my hobby, but it's really more than a hobby, is surfing. And I was going back and forth to San Clemente, which is near San Diego, which usually takes me 2 hours in 45 minutes.
Nice.
So it was that part was beautiful.
What's the distance?
Oh boy, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know the mileage off that, but maybe somewhere between 75 to 100 miles, I would imagine.
Okay. And it took you 45 minutes?
45 minutes. I also drive fast when nobody's around, Patrick.
Oh my God. Wow. That's impressive.
But you also got to keep in mind, I'd been stuck in the house for like 2 weeks before I saw freedom. Again, I could be wrong on that mileage, so
That's okay.
don't quote me on that.
I didn't know there was an autobahn in California. That's pretty awesome. But you mentioned surfing. That's a good thing, actually, because I suppose you started surfing when you moved to California. You never tried it before?
I tried it back in Jersey.
Okay.
A couple times we go down to the shore, but nothing, I was a 2-hour drive from the shore in Jersey. So we didn't go into the shore in Jersey was like a planned day.
Oh, wow.
You know what I mean? So so I didn't really get into it until I got here. And then it took me a few years to even discover the beach when I got here.
Okay. It wasn't even on your radar.
Well, it always was. I moved to California just because I've been obsessed with California my whole life.
Okay.
I'd never visited here before I moved here. I just knew I wanted to go.
Oh, wow.
And so it's one of those things where I didn't know how to start. I didn't know what to do. I didn't, and then I was talking to a friend of mine one day and he's like, I've always wanted to try surfing. I'm like, me too. And so we went down, we rented boards and a wetsuit and I fell in love with it and proceeded to get beat up and almost drown every day for a year. And haven't looked back.
I guess you took classes at some point, or?
No, I taught myself.
Oh, wow. But before moving to California, did you know anyone there?
In California?
Yeah.
I moved out with a girl. Big mistake. And I moved out with a girl and she had gone ahead of me to find an apartment and a job. Mm-hmm. And instead she found cocaine and various other entrapments. So when I got out here, we like broke up. I knew nobody. But I didn't want to go back, and everybody told me I was going to fail. And I'm moving to California. Like, see you in 6 months. So hard-headed, stubborn me was like, "Fuck it, I'm staying out here. I don't care."
So, what's the next move when that happens? When you're stuck in California, no job, no friends, no nothing. What do you do first?
You find a place to live. You get out of your car. You find a place to live. You find a job. I was fortunate. My friend I grew up with, Rich, he wanted to try California too. So he had a good job and he transferred out here. So we kind of got an apartment together, and that kind of got me settled. I was able to find a job, I was able to, have a place to live, and then I just kind of built from there.
What kind of jobs did you do at first?
Oh, dude, the worst. Oh man. I had this one job for a day. Cause I got back to me. I'm like, fuck this noise. I will live in my car. It was selling knockoff perfume door to door.
Okay.
like the ad lines would be like, if you love Chanel 5, you'll love Channel 7. Like it was just because you can't, this is what I learned from this job. You can't copyright a scent.
Okay.
So you can basically, if you know how to make Chanel number 5, you can make Chanel number 5, call it something else and sell it. And so that's what these companies did. Just started making these, selling them something, and you sell them door to door. Total shade, total pyramid scheme, the whole night. I made it one day and I'm like, I'm out.
So that's weird because they couldn't even copyright the ingredients and the recipe.
That's what they told us.
Okay.
Now that I think about it,
there you go.
So I could be completely wrong on this, and because looking back on it, and I was young, I was in my early 20s. I didn't know what a pyramid scheme was. I didn't know what any of that was, but I knew
what the pyramid was.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, this is not happening. I'm out. Like, forget it. So they could have totally lied to us about that. I don't know.
Jesus. And okay, so that lasted one day. After that, what else?
What else did I do back then? I ended up getting jobs in restaurants. I hooked up with a friend who was an extra in movies, and I did that for a little while, and I ended up getting some parts in a couple TV shows through that. I did we talked about it on Name That Tune. I did a real small part on the Wonder Years, and then they kept me around as an extra for like 2 seasons or something like that. So that paid the bills. That was, I would just go drive to set every day and stand in the background and eat and get paid. So that paid the bills for a while too. And then I got into waiting tables and bartending.
And at which moment did you know that you wanted to be a comedian or work in that field?
Well, I always wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to be a comedian since 7th grade. But I didn't become a stand-up until I was like 28. Okay. Even though we lived in Jersey and, we were a half hour from New York City, it was another world, basically. It was, and me living in a very sheltered home of Christianity and, and everything I was into was a sin. There was no fostering of that desire to, so I just kind of stifled it for a while. I didn't even move out to California to be a comedian. It just, once I realized what I wanted to do is when I made that jump.
And what do you wish you had known before getting involved in the comedy business?
What do I wish
like? What would be your first advice to anyone who's starting?
Oh, to a young comedian?
Yeah.
I will tell you. I always tell them what Jay Leno told me, and it was the first 500 shows don't count. And I remember I just started working I was still waiting tables. This is how arrogant I was. I was still waiting tables. And he was like he was when he had the Tonight Show and he was doing on the street stuff. I forget what he called it. And I was so cocky, and he came by my restaurant and he was out there talking like, "Hey Jay, what's up? I'm a comedian too." I'm not at this point. I had an open mic. I don't even think I've been passed at any clubs. And in kind of a nonchalant way, he's like, "Good for you. The first 500 gigs don't count." And it pissed me off. I'm like, what an arrogant bastard. What do you mean the first 500 gigs don't? And now, in hindsight, 20 years later, I'm like, actually, the first 1,000 don't count. He was being very nice.
He was giving you hope.
Yeah, he was giving me hope. So just, they don't just get on and do it. And that's really the only way to do it.
There is no fast lane to success, pretty much.
Yeah, there's no fast lane and there's no set way. There's no set way to, I know some of the funniest people I know off stage can't do it on stage. And some of the funniest people I know on stage are the most depressed, mentally ill people I know. So there's no set in stone set way.
There seems to be I don't know the numbers, but there seems to be some kind of a link between, I'm not going to say mental illness and comedians. That would be harsh, but you know what I mean? Like, many comedians say that themselves, that they are like broken in a way that somehow works for comedy.
I've heard that. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe it depends on, like, if you ask my wife, she'd be like, yes. But I don't, a good healthy childhood doesn't make a good comedian is pretty much the rule of thumb.
Yeah, because what's the saying? Happy people don't have stories or something like that.
Oh, well, I've never heard that, but that sounds about right. Yeah.
I guess you need a sense of observation and some introspection as well if you want to, pick up material from your own life.
I guess so. Yeah, and that's the kind of comedy I like. And it was what I try to do is all personal. I want to go to the comedian's world. I don't want the comedian to come into you know what I mean? So kind of like that observational comedy and stuff, which is kind of not really much around anymore, but some people still do it and some people do it really well. It's just, I don't like it. I like to, I'm most likely going to relate to somebody who's talking personally about themselves than I am if they're talking about sporks or, denim shorts or whatever.
Two guys walk into a bar and.
Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. I have a friend, he's great at observational comedy. And it's just, and sometimes I get a little jealous. I'm like, man, I wish I could write something funny about a doorknob, but I can't, I can't get angry about the dishwasher. That's not how I'm wired.
But which part of comedy in general do you prefer? Do you prefer performing or writing?
It depends on what day of the week you ask me, to be honest with you. I mean, you'll never just match the thrill and the excitement and the adrenaline of performing in front of a big crowd. There's just no. I remember one time I got off stage after having an amazing set, and I thought to myself, and this was a long time ago, I would never drink or do drugs again if I could feel like this all day. Like it was, you know what I mean? That's when I was hooked. That's when I knew I was hooked on the performing, not the drugs.
Yeah. What year was that? Do you remember?
I don't know. I went back and forth with stand up and performing. It's kind of a convoluted story. You know, it's very easy to get really frustrated. I started in Los Angeles, which is a terrible place to start stand up because everybody's here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm, coming, even now I still, like call the Improv and like, oh yeah, Spade's here tonight. So, so you're competing with the big guns.
Yeah.
So, but especially early on, I got really frustrated, and so I stopped and I started writing for TV. And so I wrote for TV for several years. And then I just went back to it because it was my first love. So it's hard to pinpoint time frames.
Do you remember your most successful set, your favorite set that you did?
There are so many, but there are two I go back to. And one was an open mic at the Comedy Store. I was still open mic. It's probably around the time Jay Leno told me to fuck off in his very nice way. And I was supposed to do 3 minutes. Mm-hmm. That was the time you're allotted on the 3-minute slot. And whoever was running the open mic, like wasn't around, like left, had to go do something in another room or another part of the club. And 3 minutes passed. And I had maybe a minute and a half of material of that 3 minutes.
Okay.
So I was all ready. But he wasn't there and the light didn't come on and the audience there. And I was forced to do 25 minutes.
Ooh.
And I just riffed and my riffing went better than my material.
Okay.
And I came off stage after 20 minutes and that was probably the changing set for me. That was like, this is it. I can do this.
This might be an answer to a question later on, actually.
Okay. All right.
And what's the other set that you have in mind?
I've done a few. I've gone overseas to do shows for our military in the Middle East and various other places, and we're in Djibouti, Africa, and we have a big base. The States have a huge base there, and part of our deal is we patrol Djibouti for them. We patrol the cities and everything in there. And there is a team that is on call 24/7. They're Marines. I think they're called the QRT, Quick Response Team.
Yeah, QRT or QRF, but yeah.
QRS, Quick Response Force, maybe.
Yes.
And they're the ones. Something happens, they're the ones. And
it's like the police,
call.
pretty much.
Yeah, it's a military police, because they're Marines and they're in Humvees, machine guns.
But not for the people, though.
What do you mean?
Like, not for the people of Djibouti.
Not supposed, but that's our deal.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it's military and that's our deal. And I don't really know how much we do on that. I drove through Djibouti. It doesn't look like we're doing much, but
okay.
It's just crazy. Outside the entrance to this base is a working gallows pole.
Oh my God. Wow.
Like for public execution. Like and they had one there like the week before I was there. So I'm sure they can use some help.
Wow.
But we went to go, we were very, we got to see the ins and outs of the space and meet, people, people who don't exist, quote unquote, and go to bases that don't exist and stuff like that. We got a tour of the Quick Response Team or Force and we said, oh, come out to the show. And they're like, we're on call 24/7. We can't leave this area. We sleep right there. He's in the Humvee always, somebody's ready to go. And so the other comic was like, oh, well, our show starts at 8. We'll come down at 7 and we'll do a show for you. And so we came back and it was 25 Marines, stumps, in their Humvees still all day holding, machine guns, whatever they, and I fashioned like 3 or 4 4x4s, made a little stage and we did about a half hour, 45-minute show for them. And it was great.
Nice. But you mentioned those places that don't exist. Did you have to sign a NDA afterwards, or?
No, but you had to like give up your cell phone and stuff like that. Yeah, so I don't really know how much signed NDA would do if you were to narc out an American base. I don't think you'd get sued.
No, they
wind up dead in a ditch somewhere with the guy who invented diesel.
Yeah, they sue you with an AR-15. That's what they do. Okay, so if we can go back to what you mentioned earlier, you said that anything fun was a sin, pretty much. I guess you mentioned a few times in the past that there was pretty much no music in at home, pretty much. I'm guessing your parents didn't listen to anything at all either, or did they just keep it from you?
All right. Like I said, my dad wasn't a religious person growing up. I told you the stories about the Navy. It's the pendulum theory. So he's this naval guy, not at all interested in religion, finds religion, becomes seminary. The pendulum swings all the way to the other side.
Yeah, okay.
So they were very anti-dancing, anti-music. He wasn't allowed to go to movies when he was in seminary. A neighbor's friend had to take me to see Star Wars. Eventually it settled. So he's in the middle now. So I just want to clear that up.
Okay.
But back in the day, I for a long time, I wasn't, I'm also the third of three. So they kind of went easier on me. So around 16, I didn't have to hide as many albums, and, I didn't have to sneak around as much as I was before that. So I still had to sneak out to concerts and at school dances, but
okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
That was my next question. Actually, you have any brothers or sisters?
I have two older brothers. Tony, he's about 8 years older than me. He's a fly fisherman guide in Montana.
Okay.
And I have another brother, Greg, who's about 3 years older than me. And he's now he's a teacher, but he was a professor at the University of Montana for a while, and he taught in Switzerland for a while. And now my whole family, through a series of coincidences, all live in Montana.
Oh yeah, I was going to say that. You didn't mention that before, and now they all wind up in Montana somehow. And what did your brother teach in Switzerland?
He philosophy and theology.
Oh wow.
It's a place called L'Abri, and I always get my name, and you forgive my accent, Patrick. But I want to say it's around Lucerne.
Yes.
In Switzerland, which is the east side of Geneva, maybe?
Not sure. It's in the French part.
Yeah, it's definitely in the French part.
Lucerne is, oh my God, yeah, I can't believe it.
Yeah, so it's somewhere around there. I know it's on the...
I should know that. Fuck, anyway, okay, please continue.
And again, I could be wrong. That might not be the city. But yeah, I know. I landed in Zurich. I found a plane ticket for like ridiculous round trip, like $400. This was in 2000. And I didn't even bother. I was like, plane ticket to Switzerland, on it. And I landed in Zurich and had to take a train across Switzerland. And, they speak Swissendeutsch.
Yes.
Right? Which is German and French, I think, or it might as well just...
German with some French words and with a really weird accent.
Okay, good. Because I was like, this is fucking German and I don't know a word. Like I tell myself I can fake my way through Spanish and French, but I can't. But I can't even convince myself that I can fake my way through German. And I landed in Zurich and I was lost. And this was before, this was 2000. So I didn't bring my crappy cell phone at the time. There was no GPS, and thank God some woman felt sorry for me and got me on the right train because I think I'd still be there.
2000. I mean, yeah, some people, probably most people would speak at least decent English, probably.
Yeah, but yeah, well, she did. I mean, I don't remember, but nobody was volunteering a lot of assistance.
Well, but no, it's a gorgeous place.
Oh man, I took a train across Switzerland.
Yeah, it's
and just
amazing.
watched the countryside, these amazing castles, and I saw a fox running across a field like you would see in a movie, and it was awesome. I had two CDs with me, and just I still had the CD player, and just listened to those 2 CDs across Switzerland. It was great.
Which CDs?
It was Achtung Baby and Midnight Vultures by Beck, I think.
Okay. Well, okay, so that's convenient. You mentioned Achtung Baby. okay, I'm jumping a little bit, but what would be your top 3 bands?
My top 3 bands would be U2, the Beatles, and REM.
And how were you introduced to U2?
U2, the first time I remember I was sneak down in my parents' house and sneak watching MTV. And when they were asleep or they were out, and I remember seeing Gloria.
Okay.
Their song Gloria on the video on the barge. And that was my first introduction to U2.
And you were hooked?
Yeah, I really liked them. It's kind of weird though, because I don't know about you, but I don't know. I never was like, oh, I love this band. This is going to be my favorite band. It's just all of a sudden you realize, oh, U2's like, I'm a huge Steve Winwood fan.
Okay.
I didn't realize that till about 10 years ago. Okay. And I'd seen him twice. I have a ton of his albums. I love Traffic. I love Blind Faith. I love his, and I remember listening. I'm like, oh, I'm a huge Steve Winwood fan. I didn't realize that.
You probably don't decide those things.
Yeah, you just kind of realize them, I think, eventually.
Yeah. Okay, I had a bunch of questions here without any rhyme of reason. Do you remember the first song that absolutely blew your mind?
Well, I remember. I've told this story before, so I don't know if it blew my mind, but again, going back to me being a child in a very born again religious household and rock and roll being bad. Mm-hmm. I remember driving to school, and this is in Indiana, so I was probably kindergarten, first grade, second grade maybe, and my dad would sometimes listen to the radio, and Let It Be came on, and I remember thinking to myself, what's wrong with this song? And I didn't say anything at the time, but I just remember thinking like, why, this is a really nice song. I don't know why this is bad. That's kind of like my first real moment of being blown away. I don't know if it's blowing away or more of an epiphany. I'm not sure. And
your dad didn't think of turning it off at least?
I'm surprised he didn't, but it could have been a myriad of things. I mean, we used to drive to school. It was about 45 minutes away and it was over dirt road. So in the winter, a lot of times we didn't make it to school. So he could have been navigating a blizzard at the time. I don't really remember the circumstances.
Okay. But that part fascinates me though. Did you ever talk to him about it? Like tell him that you were mad or not at him for keeping you out of all that music for all those years?
By the way, my dad is now retired and playing in a bluegrass band. So that's how far he's come.
Okay. So progress.
we never really talked about, I mean, he's apologized for that stuff and, sometimes rightfully so, sometimes over apologetic because he's a good father. Mm-hmm. But no, we never really talked about it. And he's got a good sense of humor about it himself. He calls it something like the blackout seminary years, where he missed a ton of movies, missed a ton of music, and missed a ton of stuff. And I'm not mad about it. As a matter of fact, I think I'm kind of fortunate because it made me more, when I was able to find music, it made me more ravenous for it. It made me want to seek more and I had to work to find it, and it wasn't, and I worked to find it. I really did. And I think that made it more exciting for me, maybe. I don't know.
I guess it also gives you a different perspective, because if you discover a classic at age 29, for example, mm-hmm. as opposed to age 12 when it was originally released,
sure,
it gives you more, not insight, but like if you discuss that song with someone else who discovered it when they were young, you have 2 points of view pretty much.
Oh yeah, that's a good yeah, I agree with that. Well, the funny thing is, I started discovering, I don't know if we're the same age or if I'm a little older than you, but in the 80s is when I discovered
2 years. You're 2 years older.
Okay.
Yeah.
You look great, buddy. You look great.
Thanks.
As I said that, I'm like, oh, this dude's probably 36 and he's going to be pissed off at me.
No, I appreciate the compliment, actually.
But I would, it was the 80s. So when I would discover, like when I would turn on MTV and see Owner of a Lonely Heart, that's my introduction to Yes.
Oh, nice.
So then I had all these years of Yes albums to go back and discover, or there's a lot of those classic rock bands had a little small resurgence in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And Jethro Tull's Crest of a Knave came out, and I had all this Jethro Tull to go back to and find. So I think that's one really cool thing about it. But then all those hardcore, especially those prog rock people, and we know who they are. You like the 80s version? I'm like, that's what I was introduced to, man. That was my door. Of course I'm going to take a shine to that over, the early Yes stuff.
Yeah. And it's not your fault,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Okay, if we stick to music, I know that you play guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Have you learned on your own, or you took classes, or?
I took a couple lessons on the guitar. I tried it, a couple times. It's just I'm not good in a teaching environment. Being taught, I've learned that through school, church, and guitar. But my theory was, and somebody told me early on, just play with better people. And that's really how I learned. I did for a short period of time. I was getting unofficial lessons from the original bass player for Twisted Sister. I can't remember his name right now. He went to my dad's church. Neil. I'm blanking on his name right now.
And we probably have tons of listeners screaming his name.
I know, right? But he's in the document. There's a great documentary on Twisted Sister, whether you're a fan or not. And I'm not really a fan, but there's a great documentary on Netflix on Twisted Sister. They were one of the hardest working bands out there.
Okay,
and it's really good. And I'm not a fan of their music, and but it's really good, and I recommend it. Anyway, he's in there talking in the interview and stuff, talking about why he left. Because Dee Snider and JJ French, I think, are kind of like notorious anti-drug.
Oh, okay.
And they took the music seriously. And he's got a great quote in there. He's like, "This rock and roll lifestyle was too much for me. I had to go to AA. I found Christ." And then you cut to Dee Snider. He's like, "He was the only one drinking." We're out rocking. He's the only one showing up drunk.
Well, do you play any other instruments?
I am confident on guitar, bass, and I can keep time on drums, but don't expect any Neil Peart fills out of me, or actually maybe don't expect any Meg White fills out of me at this point.
Yeah, good point. Have you ever been like maybe in a band for fun?
Yeah, I used to play in bands. When I first got to California, I friended some musicians. Some of those guys who got me into those extra gigs were musicians, and I learned quickly that musicians are the biggest flakes I have ever met in my life. So I'm like, well, looks like this is going to be a hobby. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I guess if you want to be serious about it, make it your career, you need a specific wiring that maybe most musicians don't have.
I mean, I think that's in every field of entertainment, and maybe even the arts. You know what I mean? You need, because I look at some people, and I do pretty well for myself. I'm a professional. I make my living at it, have for a long time. But I look at these people who have this competitive nature, this competitiveness or drive more than they have talent. Mm-hmm. And I watch that past people who have talent and no drive. You know what I mean? So it's a real interesting wiring, I think.
Yeah, I guess that makes for some, like you said, a bunch of flakes.
Yeah,
that's a good.
And it's also and it happens in stand up too. And I didn't really get trapped in it in stand, maybe a little bit, but bands and musicians and concerts, it's a party atmosphere. So, and even stand up, and it's hard not to get trapped in that. It's hard not to get trapped in the fun side. And don't get me wrong, performing is fun also, but it's hard not to get trapped in the party side of it, for lack of better words, because, especially stand up, a comedy club is basically a bar with a stage.
Yeah.
So every time the drinks are free, the food's free, people are sending you drinks to stay. It's really, that's why I like kind of like the older guard from the 80s when they're in the stand-up boom. They're all recovering. They're all in AA. They're just because it was the 80s and drugs were everywhere and the alcohol on top of it. Yeah. So a lot of these old timers are recovering for years, and it's very easy to get trapped into it. As a matter of fact, I've been on the wagon for a year and a half now. And only because I was on the road so much, and I was drinking, not a lot, but I was drinking often. I was on the road every week from October to Christmas Eve.
Wow.
Coming home for 2 days here and there. And so that's if that's one beer a night, and it was 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. Sometimes when, the club owner takes you out, it's 19. So I told myself, I'm like, you know what, man, I'm going to hop on the wagon for a bit. And then I hopped on the wagon for the rest of the tour. And then I decided the holidays were here. I'm like, I don't want to start drinking during the holidays, because everything's shut down. I'll start drinking in the new year. And the new year came and I'm like, I feel really good. Yeah. I'll start drinking when I have something to celebrate. Yeah. And then COVID hit. And I'm like,
let's not celebrate that.
I don't know if, let's not. And I don't know if being stuck at home and drinking is such a good idea. So I told myself, and at the time I thought it was going to, I think we all thought it was going to be 2 weeks. And here we are. It's I've been on the wagon for a year and a half.
Oh, well, I mean, that's good. Completely not a drink at all.
No, not a drink at all.
Wow.
I think I did a gig in Mazatlan, Mexico at a huge resort. With Mike Siegel. I don't know if you are familiar with Mike Siegel from Rock Solid. And I think when I asked for virgin margaritas, I think they might have slipped something in there, but that's the only thing I could think of. But it was a resort. It was all inclusive resort. So you know how those work. If they put any alcohol in an alcohol drink, it's like that's it. So even if I did, I didn't even feel it.
So are you more of a again, sidetracked city. Are you more of a beer guy or wine or spirits or?
I love beer. That's another reason I love beer. And I'm also very vain, so it makes me fat. So I don't. It's not at all, oh, maybe it's not good for you. It's vanity, why I stopped. And scotch, single malt scotch. I'm a sucker for a good single malt scotch.
But you're right, though. Like drinking every day when you're 28 and drinking every day when you're 48, not the same.
Completely different. Completely different. Oh, man, I was thinking like, a buddy of mine who's helping me out on a project showed up at my place hungover the other day, who, by the way, is our age. Side note of judgment there. I was just looking at him and I was like, God, I could never survive that now. I could never survive a hangover that bad. I don't know how I did it staying up all night drinking and going to work the next day. Like, I don't know how, like, that just sounds so awful to me right now.
Yeah.
Well, my single malt scotch days kind of cut down after I had a child.
Oh, okay.
Because like I can tell you where I'm at drinking beer. I can tell you where I'm at drinking vodka, but scotch, for some reason, it's either 1 glass or it's 3. I don't know where it's going south. You know what I mean? And I would get home after the club at 3 a.m. and have a couple of glasses of scotch to unwind. And then my kid's up at 5. So I put the kibosh on that real quick.
Yeah. And it gets expensive as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's a factor.
That single malt scotch. That my drink of choice is Macallan, 12-year-old Macallan, and that's $75 a bottle.
Holy shit!
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I can kill a bottle in 2 days.
Yeah.
So
I get that. Me too.
It's definitely heavy on the pocketbook.
Yes.
And it's, again, I'm not knock on wood, I'm not an addictive personality. I used to mess around with drugs more than I should have. And I would get sick of them and I would just quit. I would get sick of the side effects and I would just quit. And, I quit smoking. And my friend Hallie tells me, she's like, I remember the day you quit smoking. You're like, I'm done with this, and threw the pack out.
Wow.
Like, so I'm very fortunate not to have, I say, cut to be dying of a drug overdose in 3 weeks, but I don't think I have the addictive personality. So I'm able to kind of,
yeah, that's a good thing.
When I want to, if I'm hemming and hawing, then I won't do it. But when I want to, I'll do it.
Okay, so we can. Oh, actually, my next question, and we can get back to the regular programming. My next question was travel? ?
I'm familiar with the word. Yes,
you know about the concept.
Yes.
You mentioned Switzerland a few minutes ago. Do you remember any cities that really blew you away?
Well, I love New York City. I love it on paper now. Having lived there a few times, I've decided I don't ever want to live there again. I love London. I love London. I love Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
It's a very cool town. Most of my international travel for work has been on mostly military bases.
Okay.
So I only get to see Frankfurt, Germany for 8 hours, and then I got to take off to a base, or something like that. So I've traveled a lot, but most recently it's been all for work. So I don't really get to enjoy the cities I get to.
Yeah, Frankfurt is not even that cool. You should have landed in Berlin. You would have loved
Oh,
it.
I wish. My buddy moved to Berlin like 25 years ago. He loves it.
And he's still there?
He's still there, yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, lucky guy.
Yeah.
However, with COVID and the pandemic and all that, I live in a small-ish city, 125,000 people. And I'm glad, I'm going to say that once in my life, I'm glad I don't live in Berlin.
Oh, really? Just because they're on top of each other?
Yeah. I mean, Berlin is not Paris or Madrid, so that's not as bad. But, big cities, still plenty of people moving around.
Yeah, we're a huge city. And so our numbers were crazy. So, and still are basically. But yeah, I haven't traveled in... the most I've traveled was driving down to surf in San Clemente in the beginning of the lockdown. Seriously, my car had a flat for like a week and a half and I didn't know it.
There you go.
My neighbor's like, hey man, you got a flat. It's been that way for a while. I'm like, oh, okay. I haven't been in my car in 2 weeks, so I don't know.
My last trip was December 2019. Yeah, it sucked. Okay, think of me as Mike Siegel without the charm, with less travel, a little bit less travel, but I love travel as much as he does. Think of me that way.
We'll discuss the charm later. Where was your last trip, if you don't mind me asking?
It was December. So I remember going to Strasbourg, Paris.
All right.
Yeah, Strasbourg, Paris, Vienna, Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. You shit all over my last trip. My last trip was Cincinnati, Ohio.
I've never been there.
Yeah, no.
Don't bother.
Maybe stick to Berlin.
Okay. You went there for work?
I went there for work, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Actually, that's where our friend Michael Bagford was kind enough to drive down and come see me, and I got to meet him. So that was a win right there. So
awesome! Shout out to Handbags and the rest.
He's been on your show, friend of the show.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, and the rest of the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can switch back to the regular questions if you want.
Sure.
All right. Okay, so I know that you mentioned before we started, you're not a really big sports guy, but I can ask you if you want, what is your favorite sports movie?
Yeah, I'm not a sports guy. You know, it's funny, going back to my dad I come from a sports family. Like my brother, Greg, the now teacher, professor, was the star quarterback in our high school.
Oh.
And busted his collarbone like the first play of scouting season. And just changed his life. And then my dad's a big sports guy. Yeah, the throwing arm, the whole 9 yards, like first play. And I don't even think I'm exaggerating.
Jesus.
And my dad was a big guy. He was in the 1955 Little League World Series champions. They went to I think he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He might be. He's definitely in the Youth League Hall of Fame.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he was really disappointed when I joined the marching band.
Which position did he play? Do you know?
I want to say he played third base.
Okay.
So yeah, but I did not get that gene. I am not a sports guy at all.
Okay.
So just to preface that before our sports questions. But
sure.
One of my favorite movies is a sports movie. Are you familiar? It's called Breaking Away. 1977. Maybe
something like that. I think I heard Pardo talk about it. Is it possible? Jimmy Pardo?
Yeah, probably, because he had Paul Dooley on his podcast, who played the father in that. So I know he's familiar with it, and maybe they talked about that. Yeah, it's a great movie.
Okay, is it? Yeah, it's a cycling.
Yeah. For a small movie, there's a lot going on in it. It's about these 4 kids who grow up in Bloomington, Indiana, and they're just working class kids, and Indiana University is in Bloomington. So all the rich kids come to the school, and they just, there's the 4 locals are just strangers in their own town. They're constantly, and the lead character is obsessed with Italian bicycling and Team Cinzano, the whole thing. And he speaks with an Italian accent, even though he's not Italian, and sings opera. The soundtrack is opera. It's great. And it drives his dad crazy. And yeah, it's a great, great movie.
Okay. What about books? Do you have a favorite sports book?
No. I don't think I've ever. I I've read some books on surfing, which is cool. I read, is poker a sport?
It's an activity.
Okay. Then no, I don't have a favorite sports book.
But yeah, maybe there is a Bible for poker players.
Oh, there is a Bible for poker players. It's called Super System. It was written by Doyle Brunson, who is one of the old time, like he got started playing poker in the back bars of Texas and, leaving, when people pull guns to get their money and stuff. And he and like Sailor Roberts, I think his name is, and Amarillo Slim and all these guys kind of helped put poker on the map through the casinos through Vegas. And then he wrote a book on poker, which became the Bible of poker. And then the poker boom happened in the early 2000s. And now that everybody plays like that. So now it's kind of obsolete now.
I guess, well, I mean, the cards stay the same over time and the rules have stayed the same, but has the strategy evolved over the past?
The play has evolved a lot. The play has evolved a lot since then. And I remember when I read that book, and I started playing poker in the casinos when I started working in the casinos. The headliner was like, "Don't gamble. You'll lose your paycheck. If you want something to do, play poker. It's the slowest way to lose your money." So, and there is nothing to do in Las Vegas besides, gamble, drink, and some form of sex. And so all that other stuff gets me in trouble. So I started playing poker.
Yeah, makes sense. So what would you say, what is the ultimate surfing movie?
Well, I think most people would argue that the ultimate surfing movie is Big Wednesday, starring Jan Michael Vincent, who recently died, Gary Busey,
yes,
who recently went crazy, not so recently, and William Catt, who had a small show in the States. I don't know how far it got, called The Greatest American Hero. And that's probably the go-to surf movie. It's not a good movie, but the surfing's spectacular. There hasn't really been a good surf movie ever made outside the documentaries like Endless Summer and all that stuff.
Okay.
Those early, and even those don't age well with the racism, but so there hasn't really been a good surf movie. I don't think ever made.
Point Break.
Point Break. So dumb. So dumb and so great.
I had to mention it.
Of course, you can't.
Resist.
How can you not? How can you not? Speaking of Gary Busey, there you go, to surf movies.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.
So terrible.
I remember this one. I don't think I've ever seen it, but there was one called North Shore, I think.
North Shore, yeah, with Gregory Harrison.
Yes.
And I forget who the main kid was. He looked like Tom Cruise. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Was it any good?
Not good.
No.
Not good.
Okay. All right.
My buddy was a producer on Blue Crush.
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
And I have to pretend it's good when he's around.
Okay. That's all we need to know. All right. So, okay. I want to make sure that we get to all the questions. We're going to get back on track.
Okay.
Switch to music again. What is your favorite music movie?
Oh, man. I was thinking about this the other day. Well, as far as concert films, I love The Last Waltz. But I really like Crossroads, the guitar movie with Ralph Macchio.
Okay.
I think most people will completely shit on it.
I was thinking of them. What's the movie with Britney Spears? What was it?
Oh, I don't know.
There was one. Oh, shit. I forgot the name. But no, yeah. Okay, for a second, I thought you were talking about that movie. That Britney Spears movie? What the hell?
No, this was 87 probably, and Ralph Macchio befriends this old blues player.
Okay.
Ralph Macchio is a classical guitar player, and he really loves the blues. So he befriends this old blues player, and this old blues player tells him if he takes him down to the Crossroads, he'll teach him the blues. And then they have a huge. Steve Vai plays the devil. It's called Cutting Heads, and they have a guitar battle at the end, and it's so great. I love it. And then Steve Vai is completely schooling him, and then Ralph Macchio starts playing classical on his electric guitar, and Steve Vai can't handle it and implodes and leaves. It's fantastic.
Nice.
So great.
And actually, the movie with Britney Spears was also called Crossroads.
Of course. She must have sold her soul to the devil at one point.
Yeah, probably.
Which is probably her father, from what I hear.
Yeah. I haven't seen that movie, but pretty horrific.
Yeah, that's what I hear. I haven't watched it yet either. You know what pisses me off? When people name movies that I like and then do another movie and name them the same movie. You know what I mean? Because there's this great Billy Crystal comedy called Running Scared.
Yes,
in the 80s.
with Jamie Smith.
And and Smith is great. And there's another one that came out in like 2007. And every time it's on HBO, I'm like, oh, sweet. Ah, damn it.
Yeah, with Paul Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume, yeah. So
yeah, fortunately, that doesn't happen too much.
it always seems to happen to the ones I want to see at the time.
Oh, that's possible. Okay, so next question would be, what is your favorite book related to music? Could be a biography or whatever else.
I love Warren Zevon's biography written by his wife after he died. I love it. I love Warren Zevon. I love that book. We always joke. Siegel and I, the aforementioned Siegel, always joke that if you ever feel like you're drinking too much, open any page in that book and read a paragraph.
Okay.
You're like, you know what? I'm good, actually. I think I can have another drink.
Oh, gee.
He was just so very self-destructive. And it would ultimately killed him. You know, him and I had the same philosophy on don't go to the doctor. You won't get sick. He died. I had open heart surgery. So maybe not the best medical advice to take from me or Warren Zevon. But it's a great book. And he was very, as cliche as it is to say, very underrated singer, songwriter, in my opinion, and a lot of people's.
What's the name of that book?
I want to say it's like I'll sleep when I'm dead or something like that. Yeah, I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Okay.
Yeah. The Dirty Life and Times of Warren Zevon.
Okay.
Even the subtitle's great.
Yeah. Okay, so that was a recommendation right there. Okay, so next question. What was your first concert?
U2.
All right.
First concert, U2, Brendan Byrne Arena. Paid $20 in the parking lot for a scalp ticket for fifth row.
Wow. Times have changed.
Absolutely. I can't even pay $20 for parking to go see U2 now.
Brendan Byrne, the Devils used to play there.
Yeah. The Devils. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You're a big hockey fan. Yeah.
Yes. Well, a Canadian, it comes with the territory.
My dad used to take us to see the Rangers at Madison Square Garden.
Okay.
So,
do you remember any of it, or you didn't care for it, or?
There was a notorious section in Madison Square Garden called the Blue Crew.
That's possible.
And they were the upper level. They were just working class New York City. All the good seats are corporate boxes and everybody else. Yeah. And it's the die hard. And those guys were ruthless.
Okay.
They would throw shit at people in the boxes. They would yell at people. I remember one time there was an usher with a very bad hairpiece.
Okay.
An unfortunate hairpiece. And they started chanting, Patrick, I'm not exaggerating. They started chanting, "Who does your hair?" And it went around the stadium.
Jesus.
Got the whole top crew. I mean, these guys were brutal. My dad told me they ended up doing an article in Sports Illustrated about them. I'd never read it, but apparently, they were brutal. That's the only thing I remember. I was just scared of that upper deck.
Wow.
Because my dad's friend had season tickets. So whenever he couldn't go, he'd give them to my dad. And then he would take us. And I would just remember just eating popcorn, being fucking terrified. Don't look behind you. Yeah, they were brutal. That's the only thing I remember about those games.
What year was that?
I will tell you this. It was the Ron Duguay era.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That was...
okay. That was the big name I remember back there.
80s before they...
Yeah, definitely.
Before they won the cup. They won in 94.
Oh yeah. No, it was definitely 80s because I was still in Jersey. And it was before helmets were mandatory.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So, because Duguay had that this wonderful locks
flowing, yes, hair. Absolutely.
That'll give you an idea how into sports I am. I remember the guy's hair.
There you go. No, yeah, I definitely remember Ron Duguay. All right, awesome. Question 4: what is your favorite or most memorable concert?
Paul McCartney at Giant Stadium, which is in which is next to Brendan Byrne Arena. I got to. It's a long story, but I got to see him front row on the Flowers in the Dirt tour. And the truncated version is I met him a few years ago and I was able to talk to him about that show. And so that was very cool.
And he remembered it, I suppose?
Oh, he remembered. I mean, there was something about that show that when I brought it up, that really disarmed his celebrity and talked to me as a person. And I met him at the BAFTAs. I met him at an awards where he's got to be Paul McCartney and he's got to be on his game. And we kind of ended up face to face with each other with nobody around. And
the shield went down.
And
Nice.
we talked for, probably 4 seconds, but it seemed like an hour to me. So it was really great to tell him about it and stuff. So that was cool.
That might be the answer to a follow-up question later on. Okay. Question 5. What was the scariest concert crowd you've ever been caught in?
Well, coming off the Madison Square Garden Blue Crew, I'm pretty much the scariest concert crowd.
Yeah.
Boy, I think I've been fortunate to not have really. You know what? I saw the Grateful Dead and the Philly listeners, bear with me. It was either the Spectrum or JFK or RFK. I get JFK confused and RFK. One of them's in Washington, one of them's in Philly.
RFK is in Washington. Okay,
so it's JFK. And all right, first of all, it was on acid. But
okay.
It was something wrong. There was just something wrong that night. And it wasn't even the acid. It was before the acid. There was just something wrong. And then they ended up condemning that stadium the next day.
Oh, wow.
Like they shut it down the next day. So the Philly listeners will be able to tell me but yeah, there was just something wrong about that, man. I remember just walking in and this might have been 90. So the Grateful Dead had a resurgence and a lot of like jock type people were getting into them and really showing up and getting rowdy and drunk and, in Philly.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, not afraid of the drink or the obnoxiousness. So I remember that would be really, really very tense. And then the acid didn't help.
There was probably asbestos in the walls or something.
Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, you could just see, and asbestos was, already getting news, and you could just see the asbestos in the walls. And,
Jesus.
Yes, it was one of those, and they ended up getting shut down literally, I believe, and I'm not exaggerating, literally the next day, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think RFK was in Washington. The Redskins used to play there, or still do. Anyway, the Washington football team, sorry.
Right, of course.
All right. Okay, question 6. Is there a band that turned you into a fan after you saw them live?
Oh, that's a good question. Does seeing them live on TV count?
Not really, but...
Okay, all right, then never mind. You know what? I will tell you this. My wife has dragged me to 4 concerts that I didn't want to go to, and 3 of them were great. And Katie Lang was one of them. I was never a Katie Lang fan. And she dragged me kicking and screaming to Katie Lang, and I loved it. She was fantastic.
Okay.
She was fantastic. I do have a soft spot for she went more country on that tour, kind of like to her roots, and I am a big fan of country, and I loved it. It was great. So I became a fan. I followed her on Twitter. We communicate on Twitter every once in a while, and I became a fan through that.
Nice. Okay, so the follow-up question I was referring to was question 7. What is your most memorable brush with fame?
Oh, well, that would be Paul McCartney.
That qualifies. And you've...
but go ahead.
No, you've been to the BAFTAs, is the British Oscars, for those who don't know. You've had your share of, and living in LA, you've had your share of a brush with fame.
Sure, I've worked with famous people and stuff like that. Yeah. But I never get starstruck, but I got starstruck once, and I didn't even meet him. My wife and I were out to dinner one night, and it was packed. It's an Italian restaurant over in Beverly Hills, and it was packed, and we could only get a table by the door, and it was a 2-top. And the wine sommelier, right? The wine guy or whatever comes over, and he's like listing off the wines for the night. And Mick Jagger walked in.
Nice.
And with some, 22-year-old hottie. Right. And it was one of those where I screamed. No, I whispered, screamed like, Mary, right behind you, Mick Jagger. Like the guy's like, we have a Barolo from '89. I'm like, shut up. It's a Mick Jagger. And then I guess he couldn't get a table and turned around and left.
He couldn't.
But that was the only time I got starstruck.
Wow. And I'm shocked that Mick Jagger couldn't get a table.
I'm surprised they didn't walk over and say, "Hey, douchebag, get out. Mick Jagger's here." Like, why am I mean, I tipped 20%, but still, I think Mick Jagger's going to be a bigger tipper. I understand if you kick me out.
That's amazing.
There's something about rock royalty to me. Like, and I'm just going to sound like I'm name dropping or bragging, but I'm not. But I've met a ton of
big names, yeah,
celebrities, big names, and it never fazed me. But there's something about rock celebrity, like even meeting Paul McCartney. It wasn't until after when I went back and my wife came out of the bathroom and she's like, "What's wrong?" And I would just started sweating, So there's something about rock royalty to me that it's something that unattainable to me. When you get up there like McCartney and Mick Jagger and those guys, there's that to me is super impressive, and I don't know how you get there.
Yeah, it's something special. I mean, the entire planet knows who you are, basically.
Yeah,
that's not many people can say that.
Yeah, no, that's true, and it's gotta suck.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I mean, it's gotta be great, and it's gotta suck too.
I would rather be rich than famous.
Yeah, I would be with you on that one.
Just my opinion. Okay, so question 8. What piece of music memorabilia would you like in your house?
Oh, boy. Man, I don't know. I don't know. John Lennon's psychedelic Rolls Royce. I don't know where I'd put it. Maybe in the driveway.
Hopefully. Unless you want to, strip it for parts or something.
Right, totally. Just sell it and then become the rich I want it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't rock and roll memorabilia. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know if I mean, it would be cool to have somebody's guitar.
Yeah, the Edge's guitar.
It'd be cool to have the Edge's guitar, or his black Strat, which he plays bad on, which he'd probably never give up, or his that Kramer. I think it was a Kramer or Gibson that he used early on. That would be cool. Yeah. Oh, you know what I want? I know what I want. I'd want a pair of Bono's glasses.
Yep.
I'd want a pair of Bono's fly glasses from the early 90s.
That works.
I'd frame them and I'd put them right there.
Yeah. You even know the spot.
Uh-huh.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I'd take a pair of Bono's fly glasses for sure.
Good call. Okay, so
I'm a U2 fan. I don't know if I mentioned that.
I think I could, get the impression. Okay, so another series of questions. Are you good for that?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. We are getting a little bit weird.
Okay.
Question 1. Would you rather speak all languages or play all musical instruments?
Oh, I'd rather play all musical instruments.
All right.
I heard and I'm sure a lot of people do on Rock Solid, make fun of David Lee Roth because he released his solo albums in Spanish.
Yes.
maybe not great. But, and we made fun of him for a long time. And then I heard him on an interview one time and he said, of course I did him. Spanish is he's like, music is the most spoken language in the world, and Spanish is a close second. So why wouldn't I put my music in Spanish? And I'm like, well, you win. I'm sorry of all the jokes. That makes perfect sense.
It does.
Crazy from the caliente. I don't know. I don't even know if that's he.
No, it doesn't. The grammar is not right, but it's okay.
I told you. I keep telling myself I can fake myself through language. Dude, I told myself I could fake myself through Spanish, and I did that gig in Mazatlan, and within an hour, I'm like, nope, I don't speak any Spanish at all.
Were you told, or did you figure it out by yourself?
I figured that out really quick.
Okay. All right. Okay, so question 2. If you could get a ticket to any show or event, music or sports, I would guess music, what would you want a ticket to?
Man, there's so many great
past
moments.
Or present or future or whatever.
I wouldn't want to go to Woodstock.
Okay.
It just sounds so miserable. And I'm obsessed with Woodstock. I love what I did a term paper on it in high school. But I don't think I would go back to Woodstock. Maybe Live Aid, maybe some of the Amnesty Internationals. Oh, you know what? I would go to, I think it was Madison Square Garden. It was either Madison Square Garden or Nassau Coliseum, but I'm pretty sure it was Madison Square Garden when the year before Elton John played piano on John Lennon's Whatever Gets You Through the Night. And Elton John, I don't think John Lennon was really feeling it. And Elton John's like, it's going to be a hit. And he's like, no, it's not. And he's like, if it's a hit, you got to come and play it with me.
Okay.
And it became a hit.
Nice.
And at Madison Square Garden, Elton John's like, I got a guest coming out right now. And again, this is 74 64 or 5. So the Beatles have been broken up. They hadn't been on stage the Beatles stopped touring in 65. John maybe was on stage once since then.
Jesus.
And you go back and you can hear it on YouTube. I don't think there's any video. And Elton John he's like, I've never heard a crowd go more insane than when I said John Lennon. And John Lennon walked out, and this is New York. This is, John Lennon is now a New Yorker at this point, and he lives up the street, and the place just goes ballistic. I think I would go to that.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I didn't know about that anecdote, to be honest. So yeah, that's awesome. That sounds fantastic.
I'm pretty sure I got all the facts right. I'm sure M-Bags or somebody will chime in if I got anything wrong. But yeah, you can YouTube it. Go to YouTube and just listen to the crowd go wild. And they play whatever gets you through the night. And I saw her standing there, and maybe Strawberry Fields. I don't remember the third one.
Okay.
I could be wrong on the show. It might only been 2 now. I'm full of a lot of facts I don't know are facts, apparently, today.
That's all right. It's Friday afternoon, huh? No problem.
Oh, that's true. There should be no fact-checking on Fridays.
Exactly. Okay, so question 3. What is your favorite insect?
I don't really have one, but I'd say a praying mantis.
I think it was Glenn's answer as well.
Oh, really?
Because, he said he liked powerful women.
Oh, that's a good answer. Yeah, I like powerful women also.
There you go.
I would never compare women to an insect, so he fucked up there. But apparently I like women more than he does. Okay, go on.
Fair point. Okay, question 4. What scene from a movie scarred you for life?
All right, I know this one. There was a made-for-TV movie in the late 70s. I saw a replay of it in the 80s. It was called Trilogy of Terror.
Okay.
And it was 3 short films starring this actress, Karen Black. And I don't remember what the third one was. The second one was where she plays her own twin, but you don't find, it's like you don't find that out until she's dual personality. She doesn't have a twin.
Okay.
So when she kills her twin, she actually kills herself. Spoiler alert. Sorry. But the third one, she plays this character who gets this African doll that comes to life and tries to kill her. And it scared the shit out of me as a child. Just fucking scared the shit out of me. It's still, I went back and watched it not too long ago, and it's so cheesy and fake because it was 1977. Still scared me. And it scared me for life, and it's scarred for life.
Wow. Okay.
Trilogy of Terror. Chasing around with a knife. She tried to throw it in the oven to cook it to death, and she opened the oven and it jumped out on her face and started stabbing her. Oh, it's terrible.
Jesus. Sounds like fun.
Hey, you asked the question, buddy.
No, yeah, sure. And I'm ready to assume the consequences. Okay. Question 5. What is the best nickname you've ever heard?
As a overweight child with a mullet and an overbite, didn't hear a lot of good ones for myself. There's a guy in my high school they called Ace Fireball. And I don't know why, but that always stuck with me as a cool nickname. Oh, you know what? I have a friend who was an extra. No, he was a stand-in for Leonardo DiCaprio in The Great Gatsby.
Okay.
And he thought he was going to get all this airtime because he just made it to one scene and you just see his back, and all his friends call him the Great Baxby. That's a pretty good nickname. Yeah, Andrew Slater, very funny comic. You should check him out.
Okay, question 6. What would you name your boat if you had one?
All right. Well, okay. Not to dog on your question. I would never own a boat. You know, the 2 best days in a boat owner's life? The day they buy a boat and the day they sell it.
Okay.
I have a bunch of friends who have boats. You can never get better than the name of the boat from England when they had their. Did you hear that the story a few years ago? They had their oceanography department of Parliament or whatever. I don't know how it works over there. Got a vessel made for their oceanography explorations, and they thought it would be great if they got the public excited about oceanography to have a contest to name this vessel.
Okay.
And the name that won was Bodie McBoatface. And
I think I heard something about that. Yeah.
That was like my favorite story of 2016, man. And so they're like won by a landslide. The sad ending to that story is they didn't name. I think they ended up naming the vessel the Richard Attenborough, but they had a smaller vessel on it that's called Bodie McBoatface.
Okay.
So I can't compete with Bodie McBoatface. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, that's good call. Good call. Question 7. Where is the worst smelling place you've ever been to?
New York City, 1978.
Okay.
It was bad. New York City was, I want to say New York, like 1978 is classic. 77 or 78 in New York is classically the lowest point of New York. Lots of violence, lots of poverty, garbage strikes. And that was my first time in New York. And we drove in and we didn't have air conditioning in the car and we had to keep the windows down, and the garbage just stunk so bad because it just piled up in the streets. So I was picking up, and I was a child and I remember the smell. It was awful.
Wow.
But New York smells much better now.
Yes.
don't want to dog on New York. It smells much better now.
You mentioned Djibouti earlier. Mm-hmm. You never got stuck in any spots where, like, the latrines or something?
Oh, I mean, latrine smells are just, they're a smell on their own. No, I'm very fortunate to nothing worse than any other latrine out there. And just to give you an idea how bad New York was, I didn't even think of latrines. I thought of New York.
Yeah, that's all the answer we need. It came right away. Okay, so question 8. When did you screw everything up, but no one ever found out it was you?
If I tell you, then people will know.
Good point. That's a good point. Okay, so we can move on.
I did one time. Oh, it was the Philadelphia. It was the Philadelphia Spectrum show I was talking about.
Okay.
I got a job I worked in a photo mat booth. Are you familiar? Did you have those in Canada? Photo mat booths?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so there was literally a 5 by 5 foot booth.
Yes.
That I worked in. Actually, I trained in it with a very large woman, I remember. And that was not fun during the summer. But when they moved me out of the booth, they moved me to a store. And my first day with the store alone was driving back from that Philly show on acid. And so I showed up on acid at the store and just fucked up a bunch of people's pictures. I didn't know what I was doing. There was a dark room. I turned the light on. I exposed everything. It was a bad, but luckily for me, like one of the machines broke down and started leaking ink all over the place, like all over the carpet, all over everything. And so when I called the powers that be, they came by and nobody knew I fucked everything up. They just all figured it was because the machine broke down. They had no idea I was fighting dragons in the back room and hallucinating with the walls melting. So if anybody in the photo mat world remembers that was me. Sorry.
Wow. Okay. Oh, yeah. Question 9. What is the most interesting thing you've read or seen this week?
Oh, man, that's a good question. What is the most interesting thing I've read or seen? I don't know, man. I don't know. I kind of stopped for my mental. I stopped watching the news and I stopped reading the news for a couple of weeks now. I just needed to step away. Yeah. So I haven't really read anything interesting lately. Nothing strikes me that comes to mind off the top of my head. My kid plays a really interesting game. It's a virtual scavenger hunt, which I was really intrigued by. Mm-hmm. Oh, you know what I read? I'll tell you. This is similar. There's a cave up in Topanga that we go on a hike.
Okay.
Up there, and in this cave, somebody left a book. And it's a journal. And if you go in that cave, you write something in the journal and you leave it there and let somebody else write it. And so kind of reading stuff of people visiting, that cave from other countries. And it's really like why they're there. It's my anniversary. We go on this, we met on this hike, or I took this hike when I was pregnant with my son and he's writing this now. So it's just some really cool stuff to learn about strangers. I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. How long has it been there, that book?
I think it started a couple of years ago. I don't know how far, but I don't know if there was a book before that and that got filled up, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it is. Question 10, last question of the first section. If you were given a 1-minute ad slot during the Super Bowl that you couldn't sell, you have to use it, what would you fill it with?
You know what I would do, and off the top of my head, and I'm sure there's much more things that could use the ad spaces. I would do an ad space for musicians and comedians and performers who were suffering through COVID. And I was thinking about this the other day, like so many people listen to Spotify and Pandora and Apple Music and they pay a $10 a month fee, or sometimes they don't even pay, and they get all this great entertainment, and the artist sees very little of it. So I would, and I can't complain. I'm on Spotify, I'm on Pandora, I'm on that. And I know the terrible payouts you get, but I would do a PSA to encourage people at the end of COVID to find an artist that they loved and help them, and outside the Metallicas and stuff like that. But just go to their website and buy an album, buy a T-shirt and buy it as directly to them from them as you can, because I think that would help them financially, mentally. I think a lot of the look, everybody has had it bad through this whole thing, but I think performers have had it bad also, and lost our work, lost money, and so I would do an ad, not even for me, just for performers in general. To go out and buy it. You figure if 100 people went and bought a dude's album off his site, that's an extra $1,000, $1,500 for him right there. You know what I mean? So I would do something like that. I think.
Okay.
Of course, I would plug myself because I'm vain. But other than that, it would be very, very, very good.
Very PSA-ish.
Yes.
That works, definitely. I have another series of questions. I got 14 questions, but we can skip some. You could go super fast with some.
This is like a lightning round in a game show.
Yeah,
I'm ready. Let's do it. Bing, bing, bing.
Except that there is no prize at the end.
Yeah, and then it's like life.
Yes. Exactly. All right, so overtime. Question 1. You are going back in time and wind up face-to-face with 15-year-old you. You have 10 seconds before you travel back to the present day. What do you tell your younger self? 10 seconds.
Just, you have a unique story to tell. Go, do it. Go tell it. People will enjoy it. Go tell it.
Okay, good answer. Question 2.
The other 4 seconds, I would do an ad for my album.
Buy my album in 2015.
Yeah.
Nice. Question 2. If you could live in anyone's head for 15 minutes, a la being John Malkovich, who would you choose?
Professional surfer Kelly Slater. He is arguably the greatest surfer to ever live. He's still competing. He's got 12 world titles under his belt. He's our age.
Okay.
Still competing. Or he's like the Stones. He says he's going to retire this season and doesn't. Yeah, because he's got that from interviews and people I've heard interviewed, there was friends, he's got that drive. He's got that, I have to be number one. I have to be the best. I love the competition. He thrives on that.
Okay.
He thrives on that. But, having said that, there's the Pipe Masters, which is the Super Bowl of surfing. And him and this other Rob Machado, who are their best friends, they're head to head. It was between Kelly Slater and Rob Machado in the end. And it was a perfect, glassy, hollow, you just don't get this every day. And it was just him and his best friend. And they kind of just both said, fuck the contest.
Wow.
They just surfed as friends, and Kelly Slater ended up winning, and people will dog Rob Machado. Like, why are you, there's a scene where he just comes out of the barrel, goes out of the way and high fives Slater. And that gave Slater priority to catch the winning wave. And people are like, what, do you regret doing that? And he's like, no, I'm surfing with my best friend. Like, it doesn't get any better than this, man. Screw the competition. Screw the trophy. This is great. This will never happen again.
Nice.
That's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
So he does have that competitive side, but he's still kind of down to earth, I think.
He's not Michael Jordan, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Question 3. You are on death row. Tomorrow, it's over. But you get to choose the way you will be executed. You can go big or small. Logistics, not an issue. How do you want to go?
Give me a 25-year-old Macallan and a bottle of Vicodin.
All right.
And just groove my way out, man. Assuming you can't die by blowjobs. Sorry. I just apologize. I'm so sorry. If your mom is listening to this, I apologize, Miss Dupuy. Yeah, why not? I mean, you'll just float into the hereafter. I can't think of any other.
No, yeah.
No, but I don't want to get shot. I don't want to drown. I don't want to be stabbed to death. I don't want a horrible disease.
And my mom,
I think that's the best way to go.
Yeah, my mom doesn't speak English, so you're good.
Oh, well, interesting enough, the only word I know in French is, no, I'm just kidding.
All right. And then the recording cut off.
Right, exactly.
What a shame. All right. Question 4. Your superpower is that you can give phobias to people. You can give them fears. What would you make people afraid of?
That is such a crazy question.
Yep.
Right? That is good. I don't know. I think I don't even know how to word it or articulate it, but I think I'd make people afraid of their prejudices, maybe. I don't even know if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah, it's a great answer.
Because we all have them, to various degrees. Because, I think it's human, a sad part of human nature that we do a lot of prejudging, again, to various degrees, and I'm guilty of it. Yeah, and I find that most of those are wrong. So maybe that's it. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a good answer. Question 5. Would you rather win, let's say, $2 million, because cost of living in California is higher than here, $2 million.
Yeah, I'm going to need more than that.
Tax-free, no questions asked, all good, $2 million, or be 10 years younger?
Oh, I think I'd take 10 years younger. Money's never really been that important to me. But I think I would go 10 years younger.
Same, because you know why? Because there is always a way to make money.
That was my thought. I could make 2 million in 10 years if I wanted to.
You only have so much time, and I would love to go back 10 years for sure.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
It would be nice to retire immediately, of course.
Sure.
We're still in good shape and healthy, so that's plenty of time to enjoy it. But I would go with the 10 years, I think.
I think so too. I think if you ever get a chance to go back in time and relive yourself, God, that's my words of wisdom to take from this. No, I mean, I think that's always the choice, right? To go back and to know what you know. Let's be honest, 2 million doesn't get what it used to get you anyway,
Oh, it depends. It depends on your lifestyle, I guess.
No, that's true. That's true.
All right. Question 6. What is the best compliment you've ever received?
Oh, geez. Now, as a guy who lives on 4 compliments, that's going to be tough to. I was going to say live on them, but I don't get them nearly enough to live on. I only live for them. You know what my favorite compliment is? And this is going to get kind of sappy and cheesy and maybe even emotional. After a show, coming off stage and having somebody come up to you and say, "Thank you, I really needed to laugh."
Nice. Yeah.
That one always gets me.
You make someone's day.
I really needed to laugh today, man. I really needed to forget about what's going on, and I really needed to laugh. Thank you. And that one always gets me.
Yeah. I can see that. That's a good one. Question 7. What is your hometown best known for?
Well, I have several hometowns from the beginning of this.
Yes.
I don't think Argus, Indiana is known for anything. Memphis, Tennessee is Graceland, the final resting place of Elvis Presley, Sun Records, Johnny Cash might have been from Memphis. I don't know if he's from Memphis. I take that back. Great music town in Memphis. Pequannock, New Jersey. There's a baseball player named Derek Jeter.
Oh, yeah.
He was born there.
Okay.
And moved at 2 weeks old. But everybody in Pequannock will tell you that Derek Jeter was born there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So that's that. I guess that's what Pequannock is known for.
Good call. Okay, this one is not that good, so I'll skip it. Now, okay, question 9. Name me 3 items on your bucket list.
I was just talking about this with somebody the other day. See a concert at Red Rock in Colorado. It's got to be the right band. Go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I can't remember what the third one was because I only have 3 or 4. I've been very fortunate to scratch almost everything off my bucket list.
And the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will be reachable soon, I assume.
Yes. I want to get a rock solid outing. I want to try and talk Pat Francis, myself, and Siegel.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be awesome.
Yeah, and do some recording and stuff out there. Yeah, and I can't remember what the third one is. And probably Surf Pipeline in Hawaii.
Is it just a question of getting there? Or you need like perfect conditions or?
For me, it's just a question of going there. I mean, Pipeline is it's every stereotype of surfing. It's, first of all, localism is huge in Hawaii. And
okay.
That's the only place I actually respect it, because Hawaii has just been getting fucked by the mainland United States forever. So they really hold on to surfing as one of their, cultural, historical standbys. So, and there's a hierarchy there, and it would take, I would take a lot of nerve to really go out and surf there. And it's all pros. All the pros live there, and it's super fucking dangerous. People die there every year because you have these massive waves breaking into 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water sometimes over a jagged reef. So people are dying there. So yeah, so I think it'd take a little getting there, a little more balls, and maybe somebody I knew. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think, is more tangible at this point.
Okay, all right. Question 10. What is the best insult you've ever heard?
Man, I hang out with comics. Like, you can't, you can't take insults. You can't hang. I don't know. Honestly, my favorite one came from a black comic, and so I can't even say it. So I can't. I can't say it.
Okay,
but it's great.
That's all right. That's all right. I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
That it's awesome.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Okay, question 11. If you could have dinner with 3 people, dead or alive, language not an issue, who would it be?
Well, here's the deal. Here's what I've always had a problem with: the question of, if you could go back and have dinner with somebody that was dead, what would you talk about? It's a
cliche question.
It's true. Not a cliche. I mean, it's a great, here's the problem. If you did go back and, let's say, had lunch with Winston Churchill, your whole conversation is going to be like, so how did I die? What happened? And when did that happen? Okay. So, all right. So talk me back. Was my family there? Like, you're just going to be talking about his death the whole time. So I could never quite figure out how that would work. So it would have to be somebody living, I think.
Okay, but for example, if you could somehow pick someone and an era with that person, like Martin Scorsese during Taxi Driver.
Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah,
let's say you could do that.
This is going to sound so made up, but kind of true. I would talk to the captain of the USS Indianapolis, which was a battleship, or a cargo ship, or some sort of military ship during the big war. Did you ever see Jaws?
Yeah.
The story of that is so intriguing, and that captain got fucked over so bad by the Navy.
Okay.
To where he got court-martialed. And they even had the captain of the sub that sank him testify during his, because it was such a huge fuck up. Because let me paraphrase this real quick, because I know we're starting time. They were bringing elements of the bomb to a place where they were launching it, so nobody knew where they were. And then they got called back to go to another battle, but didn't tell the people they were coming, so nobody knew they were going.
Okay.
And then got sunk, so nobody even knew they were missing for 3 days. And so the sharks attacking people is the least of that. And so he ended up getting court-martialed, getting kicked out of the Navy. It's heralded as the U.S. Navy's biggest fuck up. And then posthumously, after he's died, he was acquitted. But I would like to talk to him, I think.
Wow. Yeah. And who else?
Oh, there's 3? Oh, crap.
Yes. 2 more.
Paul McCartney and Kelly Slater. How's that?
Yeah, awesome. That works.
Okay. All right.
You mentioned Kelly Slater. I think the only other surfer that I know, his name is Laird Hamilton.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Big wave pioneer.
Yeah, good reputation as well, or?
Yeah, he is a innovator of surfing and big wave surfing, and he was one of the people who first originated tow-in surfing, where the waves are so big you got to be towed in on a jet ski.
Oh my God! Okay.
Yeah, he's like an adrenaline junkie, you know. Yeah, he went from surfing to an adrenaline junkie, and he's got an interesting story. Being a white kid growing up on the islands of Hawaii, he's got an interesting story. And his wife is
Gabrielle Reese.
So
yes,
they're just fucking hot. Like they just walk around town being hot all day.
Yeah, they're doing okay.
Yeah, they're doing fine. But yeah, Laird Hamilton. Yeah, he's definitely a big name in the surfing industry.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering what was his reputation as opposed to Kelly Slater. Like if one of them was an asshole, one of them was a nice guy, or, you know.
I never really heard of him being an asshole. I think there is a bit of an asshole quality, though, when you become a professional sports figure.
Yeah, I can see that.
There can be. He might have that. I know when I go surf trestles down in San Clemente, there's a bunch of professionals who live there, and they're just dicks.
Okay.
So I just assume when you become a professional athlete, there's some, you know, with that outside Rob Machado, the other surfer I like, there's some sort of dick quality, and he's kind of an adrenaline junkie too. So you got to have that kind of,
yes,
you're wired a little bit differently. So maybe he's not an asshole. He's just wired differently. And again, I don't even know if he is an asshole. So if Laird's listening, I'm not calling you an asshole. We're just talking.
Yeah, just keep on being hot and we're good.
Yeah, just walk around being a god and chiseled and bronze, and you'll fine.
Yeah. Okay.
By the way, he's our age too.
Yeah.
He's got abs like a 21-year-old anyway.
Can't win them all.
Right.
All right. So question 12. What is the biggest surprise you've had over the last few months?
Oh, man. You know what? It's kind of, I don't know, maybe cheesy. My biggest surprise is I'm homeschooling my kid. Mm-hmm. This wasn't a surprise. I'm not smart. That I knew going in. But I was just surprised at how much pressure kids have in school.
Huh.
And it was really interesting to see, because I come from the background of, hey, if you screw up in school, you get in trouble when you get home. But watching these kids and why they're screwing up, as opposed to just, oh, you got in trouble today? Well, then now you can't watch TV tonight. It's like, oh, he got in trouble because he's bored and he's standing next to Legos. Like, of course he's going to pick Legos over, and I don't want to rag on his teacher, and she's one of the best teachers, but, you know, they didn't sign up to be teachers on Zoom.
Yeah.
So I'm not ragging on her on that at all. She's a fantastic teacher. But it was just interesting to see, because you kind of forget, because I used to get in a lot of trouble as a child, but I was also, trying to find my own way out of Christianity. So, but it's interesting to see, like, you know, it sounds kind of maybe rudimental, but it's going to finding out what the problem is, as opposed to just consequences of the actions. Mm-hmm. I was able to see why. And I think that was really enlightening to me.
No, yeah, that's, good answer. Question 13. That's the next to last question. What keeps you up at night?
I have terrible sleeping. I have terrible sleeping patterns. I'm a comic. I don't go to bed normally before 3 a.m. and I've been that way my whole life since bartending, basically. Mm. It keeps me up at night when I'm working on a project, when I'm trying to figure out, like, if I'm working on a script or I'm working on a bit, that keeps me up. That keep in a good way. It doesn't keep me up in a worried way. It keeps me up with the ideas going, and I really like that a lot. As a matter of fact, naps are really big in my creative process. Okay. Just laying down and closing my eyes and with a notebook next to me. Nothing's distracting me. I'm not in front of the computer. I can't go down YouTube. I just lay down, and it's pissed a few showrunners off when I've been in the writer's room and they come in and I'm under my desk. But that's what keeps me up. And I like that too. I don't mind that at all.
Well, that's good, because some people see that question and they think about, what worries you,
Yeah.
But you turned it around. That's good.
I'm not a big worry ward. I'm not a stressed person. Even my wife I had heart surgery a couple of years ago, and can't get through an interview without me bringing that up. And almost made it, Patrick, almost made it. And she was like, and I buried myself in work. I performed every night. I don't know. I don't worry a lot. And that was one thing. She's like, you didn't worry a lot, but when you worried, you worried a lot, but then nothing. It was coming in spurts. So I'm not a very stressful guy. I don't think. I'm not very worried.
And last question, what is your fork in the road moment, your sliding doors moment, the pivotal moment in your life?
Oh,
well, you mentioned one earlier, I think.
What's that?
The guy who was responsible for the light was away and you stayed on stage for like 25 minutes instead of 3?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. That was definitely a pivotal moment in my career. You know what is literally almost a literal crossroads is years ago. I was writing for this production company and I'd never met the guy who hired me. We were corresponding over emails and, he kept saying, "Hey man, we should hang out sometime. We get along great." And I was like, "I don't want to hang out with this guy. I don't know this guy." I was going through, honestly, and Patrick, I was going through a rough time at the time. And I'm like, "I don't want to hang out with this guy." And then he'd hired for me another project. He's like, "Hey man, we should hang out." I'm like, "I don't want to hang out." And then I realized, I'm like, you know what? I got to hang out with this guy. Or he's going to stop hiring me. So he's like, "Hey man, I'm going to a party on Saturday. Drive down to my house and we'll drive over with some friends." And this is a part of town I'd never been in. Like I might have driven through once or twice and I get lost and I don't, I got a cell phone. This is 2002, 2003. I got a cell phone, but I'm not really GPS. I don't really know how it works that much. And I get lost and I'm stopped at the light and I call him.
Okay.
And I'm like, "Dude, I can't find your house. I'm tired. I got a gig tomorrow. I'm going to go home." He's like, "Where you at?" He's like, "I'm at the corner of something." He's like, "You're 2 blocks from my house." And I'm like, "Dude, I had my right turn blinker on. I'm like ready to go home." He's like, "You're 2 blocks. Just come." So I switched, turned left, went to the party. I met Mary.
Oh, wow.
Which is my wife now. And just like, what would have happened if I turned right? You know what I mean? Like how different would my life be? You know what I mean?
There you go. The 20 minutes on stage have nothing compared to that story. No, that's fantastic.
So yeah, so that is almost literally a crossroads.
Yeah, I meant to ask you before, how did you meet Mary? I was wondering if it was on a film set or something, but no.
No, we met at that party. But my favorite part of that is the party was at Jim Morrison's house.
Really?
In Venice. Yeah. Where he lived in Venice when he was alive. And then some corporation bought it and has parties there. And so we met at Jim Morrison's house.
Nice. All right. So that's the questions. I want to thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me, Patrick.
It was fantastic. Where can we reach you online?
You can catch me at Murray V on Twitter, Murray V Comedy on Instagram, and Murray Valeriano Comedy on Facebook. And I got a new show coming out, hopefully within the next month. I'm very excited about, which is why I got to hop off here. We got to do a test, which I'm really looking forward to. You can look for that hopefully within the next month.
All right. So knock on wood.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you very much for listening, everyone. And we will talk to you again soon. Thanks.